What's up, friends? Today we are out here at Miramar Lake in San Diego, and it is an absolutely beautiful day to ride. I'm going to be getting some first ride impressions, seeing what this board can do, and trying to learn how to ride these double kingpin trucks. Let's jump right into some riding video. Alright guys, so it's time for some first ride impressions, and I have already ridden this part way around the lake, but I'm still really new on this board, and this is my first board with double kingpin trucks, so I figure it'll still be a valid opinion. So what are the things that you can judge on a first ride? Well, first of all, the stability of the trucks is one thing, but that's something that you can adjust over time. And I haven't really adjusted these trucks yet. They're still at their default setting, which is probably pretty loose for somebody that has ridden so much. But the other thing that we can judge is acceleration and overall ride feel. Now, part of the ride feel comes from the actual deck itself, which is mine, and I could change if I absolutely wanted to, but this is what we got for right now. And this deck is a fairly stiff deck, so any and all vibrations that go through the deck itself should be taken up by the wheels or by the trucks. So that's something we can judge here as well. And then the remote is another thing that we can judge. And this is pretty much the same remote that every Hobbywing ESC uses. And it's pretty basic, but it does the job. So I started off riding today in the first speed mode, which this remote has 3 speed modes on it, and it was pretty boring. I think it only goes to like 10 miles an hour, but I'm in the second one right now. I would think this one goes to about 20, so it's pretty decent. Alright, so what are some of the first things you notice when you hop on this board? Well, first of all, I haven't adjusted the trucks at all yet, so they're super loose, and having not ridden double kingpin trucks before, they feel super divey. Like if you turn too far, you'll just like fall off. The next thing you notice is that the acceleration is decent, but definitely not crazy. I haven't really full throttled it too much yet, but feels pretty average. The next thing you notice is that the actual remote is pretty comfortable. The throttle response is instantaneous. There's no lag on it, which is something that can happen on cheaper ESCs and controllers. So that's nice. Feels predictable for the most part. The next thing I noticed is that I'm super high off the ground, and this is probably just because I haven't ridden these trucks before, but in a top mount configuration like this, and with the double kingpins, you really are quite high off the ground. And it's not really a problem per se, it's just like a different feeling. But I think that does add to the feeling of like diviness, where I can like turn the truck so far and it just keeps going. Something else that I noticed about this kit is that it's pretty quiet. It's not got a whole lot of ESC noise to it, and the belts and the pulleys back there are pretty quiet as well. So it's not gonna sound anything like a LaCroix board where it sounds like a jet engine, or like gear drives where it sounds like also a jet engine. But it sounds pretty nice. Another thing that I noticed is that this board has a nice smooth start, and that's thanks to the sensors. most hobby wing ESCs have sensors on their motors nowadays, but it's always a nice touch thinking back when electric skateboarding first started and sensors were kind of rare. You had to have those jerky starts, and that's just not a fun time. So it feels very smooth. Enjoying the ride so far. I would say this board is definitely more for somebody that likes carving rather than somebody that likes to go straight and super fast. I'm not actually sure what the top speed of this kit is yet, and it's going to take me a little while to reach that due to the instability of double kingpin trucks, but I would imagine it's somewhere around 25 miles an hour. I think that feels like way more than enough for something like this. Honestly, these wheels are quite good. I actually like them a lot. They're, I wouldn't call them soft, but it's more of a feeling that you can roll over anything more than absorb anything, which those are two very different things. And absorbing everything is something that actual pneumatic wheels are great at. The large size of these wheels also does aid in the ability to roll over things, so that's nice. They're not quite 6-inch wheels, and they're also not quite Mountainboard wheels that are typically around 8 inches, but they're comfortable to ride, and I think that's the best part of this kit so far. As this is meant to just be first ride impressions and not a full review yet, I'm going to cut it off here, but I do have to say that I'm excited to continue riding this board, and I think it's going to bring me a lot of enjoyment. Hope you guys enjoyed listening to some small commentary on the performance of this, and next time we'll be back with a lot more in-depth review of the actual performance of the board. Later. Hopefully you guys enjoyed some of my first impressions and a little bit of riding video. Overall, the experience with this board has been pretty good so far. I've actually really been enjoying riding it. The double kingpin trucks are super easy to turn and really maneuverable. The rubber on the wheels is really nice and grippy, and the battery range has been pretty good so far. Realistically, I expect to be able to get around 20 miles with how I've been riding. I think if I rode a little bit harder, I'd probably get less than that, but that's pretty good considering most of the rides I go on with my friends are about 10 to 15 miles. So in a couple of weeks, I'm going to be coming out with my complete review on the board, and I'll be going over all the specs, comparing it a little bit to some of my other boards, and giving you guys a final thoughts on what I think of this actual kit. Alright, so now is the time that you probably all have been waiting for since I mentioned this in the last video. The next video of this series, I'll be giving some first riding impressions and a total price breakdown. Spoilers, it's not $500. Now you're probably thinking, oh no, how could you clickbait us like that? Is he one of those YouTubers? No, I'm not. The fact of the matter is that $500 does look better in a title than $846.32. But I did this to prove a point. So when you buy the actual kit, which is in fact $500 by itself, an average user might be convinced that that's all they need and that they might not have to spend much more money. But as you see with my title and the final cost that I'll bring you today, you do have to spend several hundred more dollars. And there's different ways of spending this money, but you do have to spend it in the end to get an actual working board, unless you already have parts like I did. Anyways, enough with all rambling. So how much does it actually cost you to build this board in the same configuration that I did? Well, here's a chart, and we're going to go through from the highest ticket item and work our way all the way down to the cheapest item. Alright, so I've got all of the values here on my phone, and we're just going to go through here and kind of talk about each one as we go. So the first item is the actual kit, and as you know, that is $500. Technically there's $50 of shipping, but I was told by my contact at ESKDiy that they no longer charge that. So hopefully you guys won't have a problem with that. Also, there's a code for a discount to buy this kit down in the description. The next next most expensive item is the actual battery cells. So this is actually a huge problem right now. Samsung cells are on a large shortage and the prices have just skyrocketed. So I'm going to give you a number that you theoretically would pay when the market is normal, but there are other options for cells like the Molicel P26A, which is a good option, and some others. What I would say you'd pay for the battery cells in an average market is about $200 for 50 of the Samsung 30Q cells at around $4 a cell. Now you can get those on some group buys or other options, but that's what I would say is an average. The next most expensive thing is the actual deck, and this is something that you could easily have yourself or reuse or obtain some other way or cheaper, which I did technically obtain this deck from Letgo for $25. So you might get lucky, you might not, and I kind of just picked an average price that I thought would be for a deck of similar caliber, so I put down $115 for that. The next thing is the threaded inserts. Surprisingly, you would think something so small would not be very expensive, but here we are. Threaded inserts are one of those things that you don't really want to cheap out on, otherwise you can have a kind of annoying deal with them. So for the Easy Lock brass threaded inserts on Amazon, I paid $19.68. The next thing, I kind of averaged this out and guessed on it, but the filament that I used to print all of the enclosures, I spent about 110 grams of my 1 kilogram roll on each of the enclosure segments, so that comes out to about 660 grams of filament approximately. So I kind of did around 2/3 of a roll of filament, which is about $17.25. The next thing you need is a BMS, and there's a lot of people that are selling BMSs right now in the US. There's Duck Battery Systems, there's ESKDiy, there's Derelict Robot Industries, there's a lot of different places to get them, and you can also get them on eBay. But I paid about $15 for my 10S balancing BMS. Now the next thing is the nickel, and I paid $11.50 for a 10 meter roll of the 0.3 by 8 millimeter nickel on eBay. Your mileage may vary and you might already have that as well. The next thing I paid for is the padding, and I didn't actually use the whole roll. I think I put it away, but the padding is really important, otherwise you're gonna end up with a lot of problems. So I spent about $10 on that. The next thing is the screws, and metric screws are really annoying to come by in the US. Sometimes they just don't have very many at Home Depot and stuff like that. So I ordered mine off of Amazon in a big bag of 50, and I averaged out about $10 for how many I used. The next thing is fish paper, which is really important when you make a battery, and I would say about $10 for that as well. And then finally, the wires. So we used a bunch of 12 gauge wire in this build, and you might use what you have, you might use some other wire, but I said about $10 for that as well. So the total price that all that comes out to is an astounding $917.93. So you might be asking yourself at this point, why would I do this instead of just buying a pre-built for $600 or $700? Well, there's a lot of different ways to answer that question. In my full review video, we'll go over some of the reasons why you might want to buy this kit over a pre-built. And I would say that the number one reason for now is to get a little bit of that DIY experience. Now, in the DIY community, we would all love to see every person just start up and build everything from the ground up. But at the same time, we understand that not everyone has as much mechanical inclination, and with something like this, you get a pre-built drivetrain that pretty much works out of the box. You just stick it on your board, plug in the power, and it goes. Along with that, you get a remote and an ESC. These you can actually upgrade later if you want, and you still have a pretty decent set of motors and a pretty decent drivetrain. On this you get the unique airless tires, and you also get double kingpin trucks. Whether or not that's a benefit or a detriment, it really depends on you, but that's what you get. there's not actually that many DIY drivetrains that I've seen with double kingpin trucks, so if you're looking for that, you might have a little bit of a hard time. With this kit, what you're getting is good. It's slightly above average, but it's good. So we're not trying to hit LaCroix or X boards or anyone like that with this build. It's more of a little bit of a budget build. And that $900 figure will vary a lot depending on what you have in your shop, if you're building this from the ground up or if you have help from someone else. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope you've been enjoying the series that I've done on this kit. In the next video, as I've mentioned a few times, I'll be doing my full review with riding video, performance specs, and my final thoughts. So hopefully you guys will get subscribed and stay tuned for that. Here's a little teaser for that, and keep riding. Peace out.